WWF Wrestlemania Steel Cage Challenge for the Sega Master System. It is essentially a port of the woefully rubbish NES game of the same name, which in turn is partly based on the 16-bit release of the time, Super Wrestlemania. Super Wrestlemania, of course, was available on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Genesis 16-bit high-definition console that had superior graphics, superior sound, and oh yeah, more buttons. Perhaps you could see the problem here. Steel Cage Challenge boasts 10 WWF superstars of the time: Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ted DiBiase, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, IRS, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Tatanka, and finally Papa Shango. Those who have played the NES version will note certain names were changed to protect the innocent. No Piper, no Sid, no Jake the Snake, not even a Mountie to be found.
Where's the Mountie? He's the only reason you want to play this game.
Somewhat disappointing, sure, but in the end, it really doesn't matter because just like the NES version or the 16-bit inspiration, everyone essentially has the same set of 5 moves of doom. A headbutt, a body slam, a Super Mario 2 style vegetable toss, and a couple others I might be missing off the top of my head. There are a number of modes of play in Steel Cage Challenge. You can wrestle a quick match against a randomly selected opponent in either a single or tag team contest, or take on all comers in the championship mode to lay claim to the World Wrestling Federation Championship belt or the WWF tag team titles. These are pretty much the standard match types and can be played in single player, 2-player cooperative, or 2-player competitive. And then there's the steel cage itself, which replaces the ring ropes with said cage. The whole idea behind a cage match is to escape the cage, done by simply climbing to the top of the cage on either side. This could result in very quick matches or very long matches. You can whip your opponent into the cage to knock the wind out of them, but aside from those quirks, the steel cage match isn't that much of a big deal and feels rather gimmicky. This is further compounded by the fact that cage matches are strictly one-on-one affairs. All tag matches take place outside the cage. This is understandable, considering how much of a strain this would put on the system if 4 people were in the ring at the same time. But then there's probably a reason why not too many 2D wrestling games of the time featured the steel cage as a gimmick match. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Control in Steel Cage Challenge is beyond bowling shoe ugly. They tried to mimic the gameplay of Super Wrestlemania, mostly evident through how you initiate a grapple, which is done by walking into your opponent, and from there you just mash buttons and hope you pull off a move. But good luck trying to pull off a specific move because more often than not, it just doesn't work. As much as you try to go for a specific button combination for a specific move, the game will just execute whatever it wants, which means more often than not, you'll be doing a headbutt or a slam or some other generic move. At least with Super Wrestlemania, you had some control over what moves you would want to pull off. Here, not so much. Generally speaking, it takes a degree in astrophysics to figure out how to initiate a pin on your fallen foe. Theoretically a simple command, but shit does this have a hard time responding at times. And sometimes more so to figure out how to kick out of a pin because holy gobbledygooker, there are instances where I would get knocked down and pinned almost immediately after the match began, when I still had full life. And speaking of which, there's an added gimmick here where if a wrestler, either you or your computer opponent, is low on health, he'll magically get back a good chunk of energy. Why is this a thing? Seriously, why?
And this is where I jump in 5 years later to provide a little more context to that question. In the NES version of Steel Cage Challenge, you would press the select button to give yourself a second win, essentially restoring your health to full, something you can do once per match. Because the Master System lacks a select button for you to achieve this feature, the game changes this so that if you're low on health, it will restore itself automatically. Sadly, the button mashing nature of the gameplay and the controls went through unaltered.
Steel Cage Challenge does boast some colorful visuals. The various wrestler mugshots are pretty decent and manage to nearly convey the likenesses fairly well, and when it comes to the in-game talent, the wrestlers look fairly decent given the small size. The scrolling is much smoother than on the NES version, the game moves a touch quicker, the overall presentation is just a little better due to the additional colors allowed by Master System technology. And in terms of sound, the renditions of the various superstar themes are passable, but have been done better in prior games. These tunes don't play during actual gameplay, which sounds less scratchy and obnoxiously terrible than the NES version, but instead just sounds below average. Not much more to say in that regard.
WWF Wrestlemania Steel Cage Challenge is the only WWF video game to grace the Sega Master System, and it's rather unfortunate.
The NES original was a worthless load, and this
Sega Master System
version does little to improve on the package other than to add more colors on screen. The sound quality might be a bit better, but the gameplay is just as rubbish as ever, and not even the inclusion of Papa Shango could make this game worth a damn.
But do you really want to know the truly sad thing? They actually brought this game back as a plug-and-play system in 2018. Of all the old WWF games you could have brought back from the dead, including one that people really want to see make a proper comeback, this is the one you bring back? Ugh. Oh well, good night.